Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. Angela Wolf here. Super excited to see you on this snowy, icy day in Michigan. I know, does you feel like it's the weather forecast? Well, it kind of is because we've had so much snow. And even yesterday, I had to cancel my live show. I got stuck at home. I can handle the snow, but I don't like the ice. So welcome. It's a great day for sewing and crafting. And today we've got Emily Thompson on. Super fun project. Let me just make sure there isn't an echo right there. Okay. I see you all rolling in. Yeah, we really are live today. So leave your comments and questions. I love seeing everybody on YouTube leave their comments before we even get started because we can see that early. All right. So let's bring Emily up. Everyone say hi to Emily, brand ambassador, Emily Thompson. Okay, Emily, we were just talking about the weather. Okay. And you said that all yours, send some of that to me because we're looking like Canada now.
I know. Yeah, we had winter wonderland yesterday and now it's back to brown. Not yesterday, last week. It was very snowy, beautiful, maybe last Wednesday. So it's been just over a week and now all the snow is melted and it's 60, but it's like windy and not a nice day. So weird weather here. Yes. Welcome to Colorado. It's up and down. But I'm channeling Christmas. I'm channeling Christmas, even though it's not white. So.
Okay. Well, I can send you some. A little gift back. A little gift box with some ice around it.
Yes. Would love it. Yes. So today, we're making a bunch. Well, not a bunch, but I'm giving you inspiration for some Christmas shirts today, sweatshirts and shirts. And I'm so excited. And of course, I've been working on these and then I get to wear them for the rest of the month, or my daughter does because I made one child size, but I'm excited to show some embroidery and ways that you can be festive, wearable festive for Christmas with embroidery, your embroidery machine, and some ideas and designs for that.
That sounds amazing. Well, I'm very excited for this because I'm actually, when we are finished with our live show today, I'm working on some gifts. Ooh. I have some Christmas gifts that I have a few bags that I want to embroider. I have a few other things. Everything's about embroidery today, so I can't wait to kick it off with you.
Yes, a full day of embroidery. So I've a couple are finished that but I will also just quickly demonstrate the technique that I use for those. I'm also going to finish up this green one right here. I stopped the embroidery about 90% through, and I'm going to finish it up with you guys and also give you some tips for if you do need to stop your embroidery project in the middle, you can pick it up a week later like I am and still get a great result. But I also first was going to show you, I think I'm a little bit short, but I made this sweatshirt last year with the Brother sublimation printer and a cute sublimation design that I think I bought online. It was cheap, but anyways, cute. I've used this over and over on shirts and this sort of cheap polyester sweatshirt, polyester blend. It has stayed great. The design has stayed great on this sweatshirt. So love the sublimation.
I remember when you did that last year.
Oh, did I do it on the show? I don't even remember, but I made it last year.
I don't know if you did it on the show. I think.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, so this is like a year in. It's been washed several times. The colors still look great. And if you don't have time to do embroidery, think about sublimation because it is fast and quick and so easy to get going on. So I'm just going to an overview of what we're going to do, and then we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to finish is this green sweatshirt. It's still in the hoop because we're going to finish the embroidery. But I'm making this cute tree design on here. So we have to embroider the last tree. And like I mentioned, I pulled this off my machine probably a week ago because I've been doing other projects. But if you leave the project in the hoop, it's very easy to pick right back up where you left off. So we're going to do that. I've been missing the 9x9 hoop. So I've made do with other hoops because that one has been on hold. Then we're going to do a Christmas applique. This shirt is finished because I've already worn it a few times. I agonized at the quilting shop finding some cute fabric to put in the letters. And I'm very pleased with what I ended up with because it's worked out really well. And contrasts the red really pretty, but also is still very festive colors. So I'm just gonna do an applique, and we're just gonna applique one letter just to see if you haven't done letter appliques, which probably so many of you have, but if you haven't, we'll just quick do one letter to show the process for that. And then I've also been experimenting. I will say experimenting because I have only done it a couple times, but I'll show you some things I've learned with the chenille sort of yarn embroidery that you can do as well on your board. Really fun. And Rose has actually worn this cozy shirt a couple times already since I've made it, and that's a really fun one. So we'll just do a single letter of both the applique and the yarn, but just to give you some inspiration and show you what I've been doing. So let's jump in with the tree shirt.
These are, I have to say, all three of those are adorable. The yarn is super fun, but I love those appliques because somebody who wants, you know, sometimes embroidery will get kind of hidden away in the sweatshirt for something like that. That applique made it pop.
I also feel like the applique, that's just like a cotton lycra shirt and not a sweatshirt. And I feel like it lays nicer. Like I feel like sometimes embroidery just gets a little bit thick, and the applique, even though it can stitch around it, I feel like with the fabric, it does just lay nicer and doesn't pull at the fabric. And that shirt's been washed, and I did, you know, press it after it was washed, but it lays like really nice on the fabric, even with the thinner background. So that's, I really like that.
It looks great. It looks great.
Okay, let me just move my camera real quick to give you a better shot of the machine and show you what I'm doing, and then we'll jump in.
All right, I got you covered while you do that. So drop your comments and questions in. We are live today. If you missed last week's show, we had some really fun things going on. Don't forget, you can go over to Brother Sew's YouTube or Craft YouTube, though. You have to click on the icon. I think it's 3 buttons over that says live, and then you can binge watch because we are on episode 551, and we didn't even start counting for the first couple hundred. So you could binge watch for days, weeks, and months. And it's all featuring Brother machines. All right, Emily, I see you. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So we're using the still layer today for everything, but some of these projects could definitely be done on a smaller machine as well. This design has a 5x7 option, but I think this one ended up to be like a 6x, well, it's not even, but I think it said 6x9, so it wouldn't fit in my smaller hoop, even though the actual design is not going to be that big. So sometimes I feel like there's like a border on it and it prevents you from using the smaller hoop, but it's not a huge design. This one I just purchased, so this isn't anything that's built into here, but I was sort of envisioning some embroidered trees, and so I went with that. So you can see here I did not hoop my shirt, and I've opened up the side seam. So with the larger hoop, sometimes it's really hard to get the hoops in there and keep everything out of the way. So if there's a side seam, it's a little extra step, but I usually will just open that right up with my seam ripper, and then it's just so much easier to do the embroidery, and then I'll close it back up when I'm finished. Now I also, so I have a layer of tearaway stabilizer, and then I have a layer of adhesive tearaway stabilizer. Okay, so 2 layers of stabilizer under here. And then I originally used some positioning pins. So I had the center marked, and then I had measuring from the shoulder seams down. I had 2 pins marked. I don't remember my, what I measured down, but usually I'll, 10 or 11 inches. And then I can use the 2-point positioning tool on the machine to make sure that the center is correct, and then also that the bottom is level, because sometimes when I'm using the adhesive, I can't really tell if I've stuck it on there perfectly level or not. So using the positioning tool, if you've made a couple marks with a couple pins or chalk or whatever you want to use, it's very easy to then get your positioning correct. And when I pull this off the stabilizer, then hopefully the design is perfect, even if it doesn't look level in the hoop. So when I finished embroidering this the other day, when I hit stop on the design, what I did to make sure that I could come back to this is I saved the design in my machine memory. It's also saved on the USB that I used to transfer it, but that's the original design, not the positioning saved, not any modifications I made to size or location. So if you save it onto your machine, after you're in the embroidery screen, it will literally save it, position, place, size, all of that, so that we can come back to it later, okay? So you can actually see here, maybe you can't, it's a little bit thin, but it's a little bit tilted, okay? So if I'm looking at the grid marks on my machine, it's not perfectly lined up with the grid like it would have been upon initial import. It's just slightly off, and that was because I used the 2-point positioning to adjust the angle just slightly to make sure that it would be in the right spot. All right, so we're gonna go to embroidery. Okay, and this is the memory button that I'm talking about right here at the bottom. So any point in your embroidery, if you wanna stop and come back to it and make sure that it's saved, you can just hit that memory and it will save it to your machine, and then you can pop back right in there. So what I do need to do though, is because it is, you know, this is an 18-minute design, and you can tell I did 4 of the 5 trees. So I need to find where I stopped. I stopped right between the 4th and 5th tree on there. So I'm going to hit the plus 1000. We'll see if that, and we're gonna just go through the design. Okay, now we're on the 2nd tree. Now we're on the 3rd tree. And then once I get closer, I'll go by 100s. And then once you feel like you're getting close, you're gonna go by 10s. And once I see that it's going off that 4th tree onto the 5th tree, oh, I probably could have done another 100. Then I know that we are ready to start the embroidery right where I left off. You can also be checking while it's doing that yes, indeed, it is going over where it's stitched. So I know the placement is right on because I can see where the needle is. It's moving as I'm pushing this, and it's right on track over the other stitching. Okay, so now it was on the stem. I definitely should have done another 100, but now I'm afraid to. Okay, so now I'm on the in-between. There's like a little tail in between the 2 trees, and I'm ready to start the tree. Okay, so we're gonna stitch out this last tree. It will just take a couple of minutes, and then while we're doing that, we'll just talk about a couple of other things, but we're gonna go ahead and start that, and it should embroider that last tree for us. Okay, so again, you're using, this is a single cut thread color. Let me see if I can make this a little bit darker so you can see my screen just a little bit better there. I'll bump it up. But so this pattern is hard to see. It's just in light gray. There's no color. So that is making this difficult. But you can see here, I have the plus minus on the threads. There's only 1 thread color. So if these were 5 different colors, I could have just skipped ahead by thread color, and that makes it really easy. But with the single thread color, again, you can just skip ahead with the stitches and then be ready to start wherever you left off on there. I think if I push OK, it's going to pause the embroidery, but let's see. Oh yeah, it will. I just was going to go back to the main screen and show you this. So here's our main embroidery screen. We have the layout button where we could adjust all those things that I did before I started. The colors would all be listed here. If it was multicolor, again, it's just a single color. And you can see up here at the top, the progress bar is, oh, I touched the screen. The progress bar is just showing a single color because it's a 1 color design. So simple on that front, but makes it a little bit hard for skipping ahead when you can't skip by color. So that's not too big of a deal though. So it's already done the outline, and then it's going to, it's not really a satin stitch, but it does do a little bit thicker stitch around after it's done the outline, and then the design will be finished. And we'll take a closer look at this one as well as get ready for some of our next projects. Were there any questions at this point, Angela, that you had seen? I haven't been watching the comments.
Well, you had, Joyce says it was a good tip to save to the machine. Oh, as long as you don't have a power outage. You don't want that. Hopefully your machine was plugged into a
I don't think it wouldn't reset your machine though. Like the internal memory of the machine, I feel like would still stay even in a power outage. So
I haven't had that happen, thankfully. Okay, Jan says, does the Avenir have the same positioning options as the Luminaire? Yes, it does, except it has a bigger projector area, 5x8, 3x5,
so
but you have
even easier than this.
Yeah, and you have the snowman feature on that as well. You do the laser positioning that she's showing on the Still Air. You do not have that.
Yeah, but other options for sure.
Yeah, perfect placement. You can see it right there on the projector.
Yeah.
All right. If you save it to a USB after you've resized and positioned it, will it save the changes? I don't believe it'll save the changes on where you positioned it.
Okay. So when I finish this, let's hit the memory button and see what options it gives me for saving. Because I always just save it to the machine.
The design, and it usually will, if it's in a different area, it will be in that area. Oh my gosh, I haven't saved to a USB in so long that I can't remember.
I know. I do use the USB for transfer for my computer, but then I always just save it to the machine. So
me too. Yeah, I don't go the other way.
I'll take a look when this is finished in 1 minute here or 30 seconds. The USB option, I would assume it's saving the positioning just like when you're saving it to the machine.
Yeah, I would too.
Because it's saving like what is on the screen, which is the positioned, resized, rearranged design, not the original. So we'll take a look at that. Okay, so it is finished and I will pull it off. But let's just take a real quick look at the memory. What options does it give me to save this? Oh, and it does. I can save it to my machine. I can use the USB, or I can also send it wirelessly somewhere. So yes, you could, I think, save it somewhere else if you didn't want to save it to your machine. That would be my initial reaction to seeing those options. Okay, so
the only reason it would not, just to be clear, is if it's an Art Spirit design. Then
yes,
that doesn't
save any changes.
Wireless.
Yes. Yep.
Look how cute that is.
So there's the Christmas trees. It's like I used a silver color thread because I wanted it to pop on the green. And I think I like how it turned out. So I'm actually going to take this over to my work table to remove it from the hoop and the pins and the backing and everything so we can get a look at sort of the full shirt. And then from there, we will get things organized for the next step of the project as well. So this one just takes a little brief delay. So I know Angela will cover me here while I switch over to my camera.
I got you covered. I got you covered while she's switching. So do you have any comments or questions? Because we are live today. Some of our next few shows will be live in the chat. So, the holidays are coming and everybody likes to take a little bit of time off. So it's going to be a lot of fun. What is on your sewing table today? That's the big question. And for all of my Avenir owners, did you do your update? There was an update that came through. If you ever turn your machine on and you see that little exclamation point, it's an update. I have to do mine. I haven't had time yet, but that's on the list this afternoon before I start embroidering. All right, we got people rolling in. Oh, I agree, Jean. They're very cute.
All right, I'm ready.
Here's a quick question. Dorothy, I'll bring you up too. For the stabilizer, use fusible and then hooped tearaway. Did you use a topper?
I did not use a topper, and I did, so I have a tearaway medium weight, and then, wait, I'm a little bit over. Sorry, I have a tearaway medium weight, and then I have a tearaway adhesive that the shirt is stuck to. So Perfect. It's not, I didn't fuse it, it's more just like stuck on there. So, okay, so you can see here, this was my middle positioning pin. I just actually pulled out, this was one of my bottom positionings, and then I had another one over there. That's what I used for the positioning tool. And then these other pins are just to, one, keep the fabric spread nicely and evenly, and then also to, because I'm not hooping this fabric, I'm just using the adhesive stabilizer to make sure that it stays stuck while I move it around. So I do use, if I'm using the adhesive stabilizer, I do usually add a few more pins around the outside to make sure that it all stays in place. Okay, so now we're gonna take this out of the hoop. And thankfully, even though this sat in the hoop for like a week, the fabric won't really be distorted because it was just stuck on there. It wasn't, the fabric wasn't in the hoop, okay? So we have this, and like I said, I have 2 layers, so I'm gonna just remove the first layer. This is also water, not the tearaway, but this is water soluble, so I can also not spend forever picking out in between each one of these trees and just wash it, and then, which is what I did on my applique, and then give it a nice steam press afterwards to, you know, make sure the stitching is times after washing. It does pull a little bit. While I'm thinking of it, it's not really on this, but for the applique, I did pre-wash my quilting cotton because I was afraid on the knit fabric, which is what my shirt is, that it would like shrink up and be permanently distorted. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. I pre-washed the applique fabric just so that hopefully it wouldn't change too much after washing. And I was able to press it out really easily. So I was, I think, pretty happy with that decision. But I'm not sure. I'm not like an applique. I do applique, but I don't do a ton of applique. So I don't know what the official like thoughts are for appliquing with cotton. But let's take a look at this shirt. Like I said, the side seam is open, so I'll have to go and sew that again. But how cute is that? I'm very excited. And then I saw this picture of this shirt, but it has like a big cowl neck and sort of a side zipper. So I'm kind of excited to see how that looks with my tree design. So there is shirt number 1 finished up. I'll have to wash it to get the back of the little bit of stabilizer off, but very pleased with how that turned out. So let's move on.
So cute. Emily,
Yes.
Quick question. Somebody wants to know, were those, and I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention when you said it. Where did you get those designs? Were they built into the machine?
They are not built into the machine. I did purchase the tree design online.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So do an internet search for that. Yeah. And also I could get, if I figure out where she got it, I can drop it into the calendar. There's a new calendar too for you all to check out when people have stuff like this, because it's not a brother product.
Yes, no, it's from an independent designer online that I bought. So same with the font for the chenille. Ooh, that's a little bit bright. For the chenille yarn, I also purchased the chenille yarn font. And if you just do a search for that, you will find fonts that are made to create these sort of yarn movements. So here I have hooped 2 other bits of fabric. For this one, we're going to do an applique. I've already prepped my applique fabric with a bit of double-sided fusible, very light, because it doesn't need to be heavy, just a very light fusible, which will help this stay in place and just keep the letters down. So I've already prepped that. And then this one, which I thought with the gold snowflakes, we're going to add a letter, and I can't remember what capital letter, maybe an R, that I already imported to my machine. So we're gonna hop back over to the machine and we'll do both parts. No, we won't do both parts. We'll do one part of this one. We'll come up, and what I have been really liking is using just a bit of fabric glue on after I pre-stitch out the letter. Just use a bit of fabric glue to hold the yarn in place, then pop it back onto my machine, and it just makes it much smoother for tacking down the yarn. So the font comes with 2 layers, a placement stitch. I'll show you that. So we're going to pop back over to the embroidery machine and start the yarn letter applique.
Sounds good. Drop your comments and questions in. Everybody says this is super cute. I know. By the way, while she's doing that, a reminder that the holiday gift guide is still there. The brother has a ton of great deals on a lot of machines. In fact, I only covered 5 of the favorites for some of their advertisements. There are pages and pages, and they have some great bundles too. So call your brother dealer and check those out. All right, back to you, Emily.
Okay, so we're back to the home screen. I'm going to go to a bunch of things already preset onto the USB. So like I said, all these designs today that I am using, I purchased from independent designers online. So there, I saved the fonts and the designs onto my computer, and then I just put a bunch of them onto, if I'm finding a font, I'll just pull the letters that I need and put those onto the USB drive rather than the whole alphabet. When I go to this and look at the USB, I don't have as many things to look at. So I just have a few letters for the yarn font and a few letters for the applique currently on here. Also had the original tree design on here, which I know you can't really see because of just how light it is with that silver or the light gray thread, but that was on here as well. Okay, so with the yarn, I think I decided I wanted to try the capital R. So you can see here that it's ready to stitch out. It has multiple different colors that it does, but the colors are simply when it's going to stop and start. Okay, so what it goes ahead and does is with the white, it does a single line understitch to show placement. And then the letter will be stitched. And this is just the way this font is organized. There might be other ways that yarn font is organized. It has 3 colors and it's done in 3 colors so that it will stop after each color to, if you need to adjust the yarn, or if you weren't using fabric glue and you needed to reposition the yarn. So you could also just do it free form. I've seen people do that in videos. I personally like to have it tacked down a little bit just to make it a little bit easier for placement. So we're gonna just stitch as is today because we're just doing it in the small hoop and I kind of want to see what it looks like. So we'll just go ahead, and I have this silver thread on here, which should work okay for the white yarn. And we'll let it go ahead and stitch out the placement stitch. Okay, so of course it's very light, but I can see here in my window that it's gonna stitch the whole letter. And then what we can see after that is that it is going to do it in 3 parts, the next part of the letter. So I'll be able to sort of adjust for that. And the first stitch is simply a running straight stitch. The next 3 sections of stitching is a tack down stitch where it does go back and forth slightly to really tack down the yarn. So this one goes real quick because it is very simple. Okay, so maybe you can see on there, of course, my light color isn't helping, but the R is stitched out and ready to put the yarn on. So at this point, you could just lay the yarn on there and stitch it. I'm just gonna tack it down with a little bit of fabric glue and then we'll pop back to the machine. So I'm gonna switch over to the table camera and take a look at doing the yarn.
Sounds exciting. Does anybody have any questions? This is a great idea. You just gave me a great idea as well, Emily. There's so many large letters even built into the machine that you can embroider and use the outline. You could do a lot of fun stuff with this. I'm thinking Christmas trees. I mean, there's a lot. You just really opened my mind to a couple new ideas.
Yes. And I'm not sure, like I said, because I really am just trying this for the first time the last couple weeks. I think this yarn might even be a little bit thicker than some of the ones I've seen other people use. So I'm experimenting, and I also have a really thick one that I would love to see how it's stitched down, but more for like a basic shape, like a heart or something. It's a real fat yarn. So I'm experimenting with that, but any outline really that you could stitch down, and then you could just stitch the design twice, once for placement and once for tack down. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to put a little bit of this fabric glue right on the placement stitch. And then we're going to add our yarn on top. And I, of course, would love for some of these letters to be continuous, but it just isn't practical for some of the letters to do a continuous piece of yarn. So honestly, some of them you have to do a couple pieces, and sometimes I cut it a little bit longer than I need, and then after it's sewn, I did trim or like rough up that edge to see what would sort of fluff off. But this yarn doesn't really fray too badly once it's cut, just a little bit. Okay, so I am going to make this turn here and then cut the end there. There'll be some pieces that will come off. And then after it's sewn, I will, that looks a little bit not straight, but if it doesn't sew all the way to the end or anything like that, we'll go back and adjust that after. So there is the letter laid out, and let's take it over to the machine and sew it up.
All right, while she goes back to the machine, Amanda, yes, the Stellaire does come with a couching foot for embroidery and sewing, but that's a really thick yarn. I'm not even sure that it would fit through the actual foot. I don't think it would.
No. So I love the couching. I've done that. I've done several projects and shirts with the built-in couching fonts and designs on the machine. Unfortunately, I would love for it to be able to do thick yarn like this. And maybe I could figure out a way to not put it through the couching foot. But the couching foot, let me see, I think it's right here, has a pretty small, I don't know where it is. It has a pretty small hole where the yarn is supposed to go through. And so I've experimented with yarn.
I'll do your visual. Here's the foot and there's the hole.
Yes. So it really is like a much thinner yarn, because if it gets stuck, then the yarn doesn't feed through correctly, and the machine keeps stitching and the yarn doesn't come out, and it's a bit of a mess. So, which I've pushed the limits on how thick the yarn was a couple times, trying to get it to feed through. So, but this would be way too thick. But I'm just, now that I'm thinking, I'm wondering if it could be done, use the couching stitches without the couching foot and do more something like this. So anyway, ideas to think about. All right, so now we're gonna stitch, it's gonna stitch the straight line up, and I don't really have to do too much because I already pre-stuck the yarn, but I'm gonna watch it closely just to make sure that it is well done, and hopefully stitching right the center of the yarn. So it'll take just a little bit longer than it did, because you can probably see, but it is going like back and forth. So a little bit more of that action rather than just a complete straight stitch. Okay, and then I will want it to stick down that part of the R. One thing I did note, because I stuck down the whole letter, if you had a yarn crossing over, like for say I was, I don't know, doing an X and the yarn was coming over where it was stitching, make sure you press down that yarn puff so that the stitch can go over both layers and not catch the top layer. Don't ask me how I know that. Okay, so if it's two layered, the bottom layer is of course the one you're stitching. Make sure you hold on the top layer so it's caught while it's going, and then it'll stitch the top layer on the second one. So now it's going to stitch the top sort of loop of the R. And then it will stop again here in the middle. Okay, and where that R is sort of folded, I did make sure I pressed it down. Okay, and then we have the last bit of the letter, the stitch out. So again, I want to experiment with yarn widths and sizes on this, just to sort of see like what would be a good, what's the right width. And I've had a couple different kinds of yarn, but I feel like I could even do another one to really get in there and get some more ideas. So as long as it's all stuck down, because of the sort of way it stitches and the fuzziness of the chenille yarn, even if it's not right down the center, it really does stick it right on there. And then of course that fabric glue will dry and also hold down those fibers. So there is using the yarn, and just to give you an idea and hopefully inspiration of what you could make with the yarn stitching. And then we'll do our applique to finish off. So let me just grab that here, and then we'll go over, actually I can just, I don't need to be over there for the first step.
Before you go to the next one, we got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
And it was pertaining to this. So Julie wanted to know, are you using a different larger sewing needle or embroidery needle or anything going through that thicker material with the yarn?
Nope. So the yarn is actually really thin and fuzzy, the fibers of the yarn. I assume if I went through like, I don't even know with my really fat like inch yarn, if I would, the yarn is very easy for it to stitch through. And so I'm just using, I have an embroidery needle on there. I'm not even 100% sure of the size, but it is an embroidery needle. It's the one I did all this stitching with that I've been doing. So I think it's actually pretty fine because I've been embroidering on knit fabric and I didn't want to tear the fabric up.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I will, when you go back to the table, somebody just did, and they're like, what is she making? I think it was Shirley. So show her the shirt. But then a couple ladies want to know what glue you're using. So why don't we ask her to drop that on her website later? Because you know it's not a brother product. But no, the glue should not gunk up your needle any more than a sticky back stabilizer if you're using a good quality.
Yep. I did notice after doing this last week that there's like a tiny bit of yarn fuzz stuck to my embroidery foot. And I don't know if that's the glue or just there's yarn fuzz. So when I take it off, I'll just wipe it down. It's not hindering anything, but I was like, oh, maybe a little bit of glue got on my foot and then the yarn fuzz stuck to it. But so that's the only thing I noticed with using the glue is that I think it got a little bit on the side. And this needle, I have a paper project sewing that I'm going to do next. So this needle's done a lot of embroidery. So it's going to be ruined by sewing some paper next, and then I'll throw it away. So
that's a perfect way to do it. Okay. Did you slow down the embroidery at all for that?
I did not, because I feel like I'm kind of comfortable with it, but I would if it was my first time, and I did when it was my first time. And if I wasn't gluing it down, I absolutely would if I'm trying to position the yarn while it's sewing.
Okay, that's great. And then did you raise the presser foot at all, or did you just leave it at the standard setting?
I just left it as it is. I actually went into my settings and played around with it. And in the end, I just decided to leave it at the standard height.
All right.
But again, real thick yarn, I probably would put it all the way up.
Yeah. Chris says, would a topper be useful when stitching? 50-50. I mean, you could, but then you really can't see. I guess it really doesn't matter because it's not getting hot.
I wouldn't be able to adjust the yarn at all if I needed to with a topper on it. And sometimes I have them like, oh, it slid over a little bit, or I need to like press this down or something. And I just feel like I wouldn't be able to touch it. And I don't know if I'd like that with the topper.
Okay.
But with the glue, you don't touch it as much.
Yarn like this with the couching foot, with the embroidery couching foot, you might be able to. Good for you.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to be my next experiment is like how to use the couching fonts with thicker yarn. So it's like super fuzzy, because the couching, goes back and forth. It's not just an outline. So the font is so cute. And if the yarn was really fuzzy, it'd be amazing. So I have to think about that.
That'd be fun. All right. Any more questions? Drop them in. I'm going to let Emily take it away to her next spot.
Okay, so I'm going back to the embroidery home screen. I'm going to pull up my USB again, and we're going to stick with the letter R. And so here you can see the outline of the letter R, and then we're going to set that. Again, we're just going to embroider it as is. I have the smallest hoop on here, so I think it should, although it says it's 5.5, and I feel like I thought I pulled out let's see if it will reduce a little bit. We'll see if it stitches, if it likes my hoop. It might not. I might have to grab that bigger embroidery hoop that I just finished with. Let's see what it does. Oh, okay. I thought I grabbed a small enough letter. All right, so we're going to do a quick switch to the one we just finished, this one. We'll switch it out.
Isn't that, if there could be like, what is your top 10 Embroidery, sewing annoyances.
Yes.
I would have to say that's one of them. And I do it all the time, Emily. Of course, it's going to happen when you're live, but I do it all the time where I will look, I will even say what size hoop I'm going to use, and then I get carried away and start adding too much stuff. And it says, and I've already hooped everything. And it says, ding, change to a bigger hoop. It's like, dang.
I know. And I thought I was so organized yesterday, getting all the fabric hooped and using all my hoops. And I thought I grabbed maybe I grabbed the 4.5 inch R, which would be too big for the 4x4 now that I think about it. So maybe I was thinking it was in the 5x7, that I was going to do it in the 5x7 hoop, and the 4.5 I thought would be perfect. I'm not sure. Okay. So a little bit small piece of fabric, but you can totally still hoop it. Doesn't matter. You can leave this extra. I'm not going to be stitching on that. This is the size I'm stitching. I know this is the size I'm stitching. So I know that would be fine, but just know that you don't have to fill the hoop if you can still get the right tension. Okay. So that was it. I think I was going to adjust on there. What I was going to say is, when I did the Mary, and so what I wanted to do was I wanted to do the whole, I didn't want to do one letter at a time. I wanted to do the whole design. So I wanted to stitch all the placement lines. Then I put my fabric on, and this is a tutorial up on my site. So if you want to go check it out, then I did all the tack down, and I tacked down all the fabric, MERRY. And then I went over and I trimmed all the fabric, and then I did all the satin stitch. So when I was doing all of that, it won't show me, but I used the color sort button so that it did all the layouts, all the tack downs, and then all the satin stitch, and it sorted them out for me. So that was beautiful, because then I was doing all the design at a time. I was doing each step, but for all 5 letters at one time, rather than, you can also cycle through. So for example, you don't have a machine that allows you to do the color sort. You could simply, for example, for the Mary, I would do the M, and then I would skip through to the next letter, to the tack, to the placement stitch. Then I would skip through the next letter, the placement stitch. So on a smaller machine that may not have that feature, you still can do all of one step at one time. If you want to, you just would use the sort of arrows to cycle through. And if I was using, I have the SE2000 over there on the table, and I've absolutely done it for that. So first stitch, we're going to do the placement stitch so we can make sure that this fabric is the right size. I really hope it is. I think I cut it the right size. And then, so we're going to do the placement stitch to find out sizing. While I'm doing that, I'm going to peel the paper backing off. Again, I used a very light double-sided fusible so that I can fuse this to my shirt after I've tacked it down and cut it out. Cut out the edges before I do the satin stitch, and that will just really help it lay nicely onto the fabric. All right, so we're doing the layout stitch. It goes pretty fast.
I agree. Julie says, you came up with some amazing ideas. I know. I was just thinking, I think you get a pass on that 4x4 hoop because you did so much. You had to have everything organized so well. You get an A.
Yeah. Well, I've been working on these shirts for a while because this is sort of things I've been like blogging about, and I've loved the inspiration for doing the shirts. So it's been a good project for me. All right. Now you probably cannot see this layout because I forgot to change the thread. But we're going to place, it does fit. I'm going to place it on, and I'm actually going to switch to, I have this red thread right here because that's what I want to stitch. This is, I'm going to change it because hopefully it will also be a little bit easier for you guys to see. I should have done that for the placement stitch so you could see that, but oh well. Silver is not bad for the placement, but you just can't see it on there. So on this hoop, in what looks like probably invisible thread to you, is the letter R stitched out. Okay, so just the outline. So now I can take my pre-cut applique fabric and make sure that it is covering all of the stitches. Okay, covering all the stitches. If you are not I use this really light fusible, and I've even, depending on the applique and the intricacies of it, I've actually taken my iron and just fused like a tiny bit of the middle because it's so light. I can always peel it back if I need to cut that area, but just to keep it in place. And actually when I did the Mary, the 5 letters, I did fuse it a tiny bit first just to make sure it wouldn't move. But with this single letter, I think I can keep it in place. And now it's going to stitch out again, a single outline to tack this down. And then we will go trim before we do the final satin stitch, trim and fuse. So it's going to quickly, and you should be able to see this now, it's going to do the outline of the letter again. If you needed to, you know, make sure you keep everything lined up. Hopefully if it starts to bunch, that's where you might need to stop it and make sure that it was laid out. But usually it stitches out pretty well.
All right, Emily, you know this was going to come up because everybody loves the scan and cut, as so do you. Could you show it on? Could you have sent that letter to the scan and cut from your machine? Yes, using my connection, she could have done that.
If you have my connection, so this part of the embroidery design right here, the line that has the little scissors, that is a file that your scan and cut can read if you have my connection installed. Okay, so when you go to that, you would highlight that section of the design, then you would hit the memory button, or you could send it wirelessly with the My Connection. There would be, if you have My Connection installed, which I actually don't on this machine, you highlight that part of it, and then there's a little button at the bottom that's the little scan and cut, and it will actually send that file over to your scan and cut, and then from there you can cut it and bring it back over. And then you wouldn't have to do this next step, which I'm going to do, which is trimming your fabric. So we're going to head over to the cutting table, do a quick trim before we finish this up.
All right. Well, she's headed over there. I see some of your other comments. There's a lot of people here today on YouTube that have the Dream Machine. I love the Dream Machine. So, and someone said, I have the Dream Machine. I don't need to upgrade yet. I haven't even figured out how to use everything on it. Well, the Dream Machine is a fabulous machine. That was one of the first machines that when Brother came out with that, with the scanning, and you could do your signature. Oh my gosh, the scanning mat was absolutely my favorite, which thankfully they've kept that going with a lot of their machines. But I would love to know, while she's at her table, we can see you cutting away. Okay, what machine are you on? And what's your favorite feature? What machine, what's your favorite feature? And I get to enjoy those while Emily's cutting away.
Okay, so I am using embroidery snips with, they have the small blade and the curved tip, just to hopefully prevent, it still doesn't, it's not foolproof. I still have cut my fabric, but hopefully to prevent cutting that under layer. Again, if you would cut this on your scan and cut, you would not have to trim. It would be a perfectly sized R that you could have put over the placement stitches and then done the tack down layer before the satin stitch. But for this one, I am trimming out the design. It's still not fused. Actually, I should wake my iron up because that's going to be the next step, is before I do the satin stitch, I'm going to fuse this down. If for some reason you do accidentally snip through your tack down stitch, it's actually okay. I wouldn't go back and restitch that because the satin stitch is going to completely cover this and provide much more stability on the stitching. So if you do cut one of these stitches for some reason, which I have, which is why I'm saying it, I don't worry about that because this is literally just to keep this in place while you're trimming out your fabric. So cute and easy. And now we're going to go do the satin stitch around this, but we're first going to just do a real quick fuse. If you have, you know, I know some people do this all in the hoop and they have those awesome mats that you can fuse and clip and everything right in the mat. This is just a plain wool pressing mat, not hoop sized. Okay, so there is my letter fused down.
So cute. I love that. Someone said this would be a great way to cover up a hole on your sweater. Yes. I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. Put some pretty applique and you're ready to go. All right. So we're going to go over to the machine here and then the final step is to do the satin stitch. So it's going to do sort of that zigzag placement stitch. And while this is doing, I am going to give you guys a close up so you can see the embroidery a little bit closer. I haven't done that yet today, but just to see how it's stitching, and it should go through really nicely. So I'm going to go around. We actually might not watch this whole thing because it takes a minute, or maybe I'll just re-show the shirts that I already made for those of you who came in a little bit late. I've used these techniques to create full shirts. So I'll show those off as well while this is doing it. And if it doesn't finish, you'll get the idea. But let me just grab the camera and bring it a little bit closer to give you
I'll take
a
you out
close-up of what this is doing. Yeah, my cords, I've got like 10 cords on here today.
I'm like, okay, before everybody gets seasick, we're going to just take this out for a second. All right, there you go. Look at that.
Okay, so you can see how it is doing just the zigzag around. And then once it finishes that, it will do the full satin stitch, which stitches out beautifully. And I'll show you up close on the shirt that I did, but really loving this as well. And there are designs built into the Stellare that would work for applique. The reason I did not use those is because of the sizing. They don't get this big, but there are outline fonts that you could absolutely, with satin stitch outlines, you could absolutely use. So now it's starting to do the satin stitch. You can see that really sort of thick, beautiful stitch developing on there. And it looks really nice. All right, Angela, I'm going to put this back on the tripod here.
All right. I'll take you out while you're moving it around. Any comments or questions? Somebody here has the Dream Machine or Dream Weaver. Love that machine. I love the music that came with that one too.
All right.
Joyce
so while
she's
this
inspired.
is embroidering,
She loves it.
Yeah, let me just show you the shirts I did finish using the techniques that I just demonstrated. So again, if you were late, I had 3 Christmas shirts in the works, or holiday shirts. This one just has the trees. I might be able to wear this sort of all winter a little bit more.
So cute. So cute.
So that was just a design that we did on there, just simple embroidery. So that would just be if you use an embroidery design on the machine or purchase an embroidery design, just stitch it out. Then we did the fuzzy yarn. This one I spelled the word cozy. I didn't use the capital C because I sort of wanted it to be all uniform, but after I was finished, I was wondering if I should have used the capital C to balance out the loops of the Z and the Y. I'm not sure. Sometimes I second guess myself, but Rose has worn this. She likes it. She thought it was very soft and cuddly. So they're using the yarn font. And then this is using the applique as we're doing right now. So this one, I outlined it in green. We're using red right now to applique this same fabric of the R that we're making there. But you can see how I just did the 5 letters and it organized. I just lined them up, put them on there. I think this was 5 inches, 5-inch font. But I did like this. I did have to use the largest. Maybe I used a 9.5 for this. I don't know. Remember which one I did for that, but I did open up the side seam of this shirt and then reclose it as well. And loving how that one turned out. So this embroidery font, or the applique font, does stitch out really, really nicely and has a great satin stitch finish when done. And again, I used a font that I purchased for applique because I wanted the sizing. And on this machine, you can't get letters 5 inches tall. So again, using the My Connection and the applique creation. If you have My Connection, you could use one of the fonts from your Scan and Cut, which is bigger than tiny. You know, you could get it 5 inches or whatever size you wanted. Cut it out and send that over. Create the applique with the Scan and Cut file, and then have bigger letters as well. So if you have the My Connection, you would not have to purchase any larger font because you would be able to use the Scan and Cut letters to create your own applique fonts very easily using the My Connection. So that's what we've been working on. Those are the shirts that I made. This is still stitching away here. I'll maybe let it finish the outline and then I'll pull it off and show you, or pull it off and show you. But I didn't realize it was like 10 minutes just to do the satin stitch around there. So I don't know if there are any questions while I finish up, but that really was all I had to show today for that.
No, everybody's having fun. Jean's got the Stellaire, and I'm happy to hear you learn some of your features from the masterclass. That's awesome. And what else do we have? Everybody's saying they love it. They love it.
I'll just show you a really close up while we finish, but so you can see it's not quite finished, but it is stitching out really nicely. The red on there is actually quite nice. I did the green on the other one. I think I didn't do the red because my shirt was red and I wanted it to stand out, but on this plaid, it looks amazing. So yeah, you can see it would just finish up. The back is also really nice. Because not stretch fabric, that I just have a single layer of stabilizer in this hoop tearaway, not the double layer that I did for the knit shirts. So there you go. Some applique, some yarn, some simple embroidery. Hopefully get you inspired. Grab a shirt. Probably have one sitting in your closet that you can embroider on and add some festive fun.
You know, Emily, I'm so excited that you had this show today because I'm getting ready. I mentioned I'm embroidering a bag. I can't say who it's for because they're probably watching the live show. But, I was thinking all that embroidery on that, it's a vinyl, I'm just worried it's not going to look nice. I love this applique idea. I have some perfect fabric for that.
Yeah, I think that would absolutely work really nice on the vinyl.
It sure would. So Emily, thank you so much for these great tutorials. Again, if you want to drop over to her, let me bring her website up because you want to just put it on your social media or something, the products you were using?
Yeah, so actually if you go to the Mary post, which is not the, right now it's still the top post on lifesosavory.com. The fabric glue, the font I used for this, those are both linked in that post. And then from there, if you're interested in the yarn font or the tree font, they're actually purchased at the same source as the Mary one. So if you go to that site, as I'm speaking in code, you'll be able to just search for those other fonts as well. But that should get you started on those supplies.
Perfect. And then I've got one more thing because everyone had asked, and the website is still uploading, but let me just share real quick. You all asked for the schedule to be a little easier to find and for live shows. And I'm laughing kind of hard because I'm looking at the front of my website and it's the first like half is blank, but I must have forgot to hit save on that part. But here, take a quick look. When you go to angelawolf.com, up here where it says calendar, click on calendar. And now if you look down here, these are all the Brother live shows. You can go back and watch the others. And when you scroll through, it's just a calendar on here. You can actually save it to your own calendar. And then also on here, under the dates when Emily or anybody has products, I can list them on here quickly because it's on my page and not Brother's. So just another easy way to do it. So if you go to angelawolf.com and click on calendar, that's where you can start. Oh, there we are, Emily.
Yay!
What a great photo of us.
There we are.
Yeah. All right. Speaking in code. We are speaking in code for sure. Emily, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I know you're going to have a fun time with the kiddos and the family. So
thank you. You too.
Cannot wait to see you in January for what's coming out new.
Sounds good. Thanks. Have a great day.
All right. Happy sewing, everyone. Until next time, see you Tuesday on At Your Side Virtually.
Attach the embroidery frame in the initial sewing position.